we're getting an inside look at the most advanced fighter of them all, the F-35. Can we go see the real jet?
This is the most capable, the most advanced fifth-generation fighter, and its capabilities are unmatched.
You see everything in an F-35 because the sensors are so advanced. You have stealth and other defensive systems on the aircraft. For the most part, nobody sees you.
I can't wait to see how these are built.
The production system set in place in this most powerful building in the world.
When you think about all that's out there, the F-35 is the central node in that. It's the quarterback out on the field.
From the factory to the field, let's go see this thing in action.
The capabilities for what we can do, they're light years beyond where we were at just a decade ago.
This is going to be cool. It's time to go behind the wings. I'm Tracy Lauderette, Colorado's First Lady Fighter Pilot. I'm at Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum in a historic World War II era hangar. Today, we're going to the cutting edge of aviation alongside the F-35. I cut my teeth on the F-16, and while it will always be my favorite aircraft, the F-35 is transforming the world of aviation and land and sea defense in ways I never could have imagined. Get ready for takeoff. The F-35 is not your average fighter jet. It has the most advanced sensor suite of any fighter jet in history. Its integrated helmet technology crunches data in real time. This flying marvel is powered by the most powerful fighter engine in the world, the Pratt & Whitney F135 engine with about 43,000 pounds of thrust. So it can fly faster than the speed of sound at Mach 1.6. That's about 1,227 miles per hour. There are 3 versions of the F-35. The most common variant, the A model, is flown by the Air Force and used on conventional runways. The B model can hover and land vertically, and the C model is made for landing on aircraft carriers and has a tailhook. The F-35 first flew in 2006, entered service in 2015, and today is utilized by the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. To date, 9 countries around the world operate the F-35 on their own home soil, and it's operated on 26 bases around the world. We're here at my alma mater, the United States Air Force Academy. Today, we're here to learn about our 5th generation F-35 Lightning II fighter aircraft. So we've both flown 4th generation fighters. For you, the F-15 Eagle, for me, the F-16, which I absolutely loved. But I'm dying to know, what's so special about the F-35?
The F-35 is far and away our most technologically advanced fighter. It's the only 5th generation fighter that is continuing to come off the production line. It represents a generational leap in technology, capabilities, and capacities. And it's all about lethality and survivability. Lethality, i.e. you can go out and fly an aircraft and achieve your mission objectives, whether it's dropping a bomb or launching a missile. And survivability, if somebody's trying to stop you from doing that from the ground or from the air, you know that you're going to be able to come back from that mission without having to take a ride in a parachute on the way down.
Nobody wants to take that silk ride. Can you tell us a little bit about how they're different from the older generations to what you found in the F-35?
Yeah, so the Air Force has over the years kind of described or binned their fighters into generations. 1st gen, 2nd gen, 3rd gen, 4th gen, 5th gen. The way that I view them is the 1st generation was really our first frontline fighters at the Air Force field. I think like the F-86s in the Korean War. 2nd generation, now you're kind of talking our Century Series aircraft, you know, the F-100, the F-104, the F-105, kind of the early Vietnam era. And then our 3rd generation fighters were the more advanced, multi-role, supersonic with radars, kind of think the F-4 and the F-111. 4th generation fighters are kind of our existing but older portion of our fleet, the F-15s, the F-16s, the F-15E models. And then the 5th generation fleet is typically described as the F-22s and the F-35s.
What role does the F-35 play in deterrence?
Nobody wants to get into war, right? That is like the worst case scenario. So if we can deter our adversaries that are even considering going into a conflict with us, and they know that we've got a fleet of F-35s, a fleet of F-22s, and a wide range of other capabilities and capacities to back them up, hopefully that makes them less inclined to cross a line where we get in a shooting match. So deterrence is without a doubt the #1 imperative, but if that all fails, we've got the muscle to back it up if we need it. A couple of key components to specifically the F-35, when you think about 5th gen, stealth is certainly an absolutely critical component to a 5th generation fighter. So you can operate with this concept that we call tactical impunity. So you can prosecute your attack, go out and accomplish your mission without being at threat or at risk or distracted by an enemy that knows where you are, and when they know where you are, they can find a way to distract you or even worse, target you and shoot you. And then it's about integrated avionics and advanced sensors. And the F-35 has all 3 of those, and they're getting better with every single one that we get off the production line.
Now that we've learned a little bit about the technology behind the F-35 and how we've advanced to this 5th generation fighter, let's go check out how it's built. We're here at Lockheed Martin's jet production facility in Fort Worth, Texas. This historic plant has been producing airplanes since World War II, and today we're entering the production facility to get an inside peek at the most advanced fighter of them all, the F-35. This is the F-35 assembly line, made up of 300 workstations, 50 robots, and 4,000 humans working together along this mile-long stretch. This place is enormous.
This building has been here for many, many, many decades, building all kinds of aircraft. Today, we're building the F-35 here. When I first started, we were building the F-16, and in fact, a little bit center fuselage for the F-22. But the factory, even though it's the same outside walls, a little over a mile long, it's very different inside today. We're building at an incredible rate we've never seen before in a fighter aircraft. There's a tremendous amount of technology on this floor. 90,000 fasteners in every airplane. So if we had somebody installing 90,000 fasteners, it would take a lot of time and frankly may not be so repeatable. So we bring robots in, they do installation of these fasteners, they do coating work for us, and it frees up our mechanics to do really the craftsman work.
So it's a little different than the Rosie the Riveter days. For the amount of work that's being accomplished every single day, you walk in and you can practically hear a pin drop in here.
It is pretty cool, and that's the change, the combination of automation and technology combined with skilled craftsmen.
Could you talk a little bit about some of those special characteristics that make the F-35 so powerful?
I'll start with low observability. What that means is it gives us the opportunity to get into the enemy airspace without them seeing us and without being detected. And it's a very fundamental feature of 5th generation that the F-35 has mastered. And frankly, the F-35 has been learning from those that came before it. Probably one of the most unique things that the F-35 brought is the ability to communicate not just to other F-35s, but to all the other players in the battle space, to be able to share information from an F-35 to another F-35, or to a ship, or perhaps bringing it from a satellite. So when you think about all that's out there, the F-35 is the central node in that. It's the quarterback out on the field. The jets that are rolling off the line today, in a couple of years, they'll be new and different capabilities, and we've been able to accommodate that. As the threat advances, we're going to stay in front of it.
As we make our way down the line, these jets are really starting to take shape. Along the way, parts and components are added like building blocks. Every aircraft is made to order and bears the flag of the country that's adopting it. About 150 F-35s roll out the door every year. So Eloy, we're here in this beautiful production facility where these babies are made. I gotta hear a little bit more about just how are these aircraft built?
The production system set in place in this most powerful building in the world. There's lots of teams that come together. We're constantly in continuous improvement. Each section that it comes in, you get to see the beauty of it come together until we reach the final end and we do the engine install at the very end. And then when it comes out to the paint shop and we finally get a beautiful bird that you see in the sky.
I also heard that you're not the first in your family to work in this plant. Can you tell us a little bit about your parents?
I'm actually the 2nd generation to build such a prestigious aircraft. My parents were on the F-16 program. So I was a product of this kind of environment. So it is a very prideful thing to follow in their footsteps and actually be a part of the process they were for their generation. In today's warfighter is far beyond anything that I've ever seen on the entire planet. We do have the air superiority around the world.
Eloy, does this place ever shut down or do you guys operate 24/7?
This aircraft cannot be built on one shift. We have over 4,000 people working round the clock to produce this aircraft.
Each jet spends about 18 months in production until the newest F-35 rolls off the line, ready to turn and burn on its first flight. We've made it to the end of the line, and one of the people who gets to test the F-35 on its first flight is Monessa Balsizer, call sign Siren. She's the first female F-35 production test pilot, joining an elite group of female F-35 pilots who came before her. As Colorado's first lady fighter pilot, I'm so excited to meet another first in her field. So the F-35 takes center stage today, but what really brought you to Lockheed originally?
I actually joined Lockheed Martin as a F-16 engineer because that was my background and what I knew for so long. And then I got lucky enough to be asked to fly for the company. I eventually started off in the F-16 and then got offered the job to start flying the F-35 as well. I probably have the best job in the company. So yeah, welcome to the F-35.
So you get to be the first pilot to get your hands on this jet. It comes off the production line and they hand it over to you. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's like?
Literally, it's like a new car for me. New smell, you know, the buttons are nice and crisp. You know, the production line technicians, they did a fabulous job of putting the jet together, and then it gets handed into final assembly, and then the maintainers bring it out here for us to climb into the cockpit. What you see in front of you is the F-35A model. It is the cornerstone of 21st century security, and it is a force multiplier because it does so many roles and its capabilities are unmatched. Hidden in this glass area located in the front of the F-35 is what we call, the pilots call the EOT system, or the electro-optical targeting system. That is now internalized into the F-35, makes it part of stealth, and then also is a key feature in our sensor fusion. So it's all compacted into this one area. But the great thing is, this one sensor talks to everything around the jet.
So thanks to this piece of technology, the jet really becomes a thinking part of the crew, right? It's like you're flying a giant computer.
Absolutely, and it's just one of the many things around this jet that provides that sensor fusion or flying computer that you always talk about.
Can't fly the real jet, but let's go fly the sim. So no two-seaters out there for me to fly on the line, right?
Nope, sorry,
All right.
just single seats.
All right, let's do it.
It's like you've done this before.
Oh, it's like home. I feel like everything I could possibly want to see is available to me all at the same time.
It's a different mindset for F-35 pilots. They manage the battlefield and they manage the battle space, sharing data, air and ground.
So flying the jet itself is supposed to be relatively simple, so you can do all that.
They made it easy so that the pilot can look inside and manage the sensors. The fly-by-wire system allows the pilot to really almost go hands-off, super stable aircraft, and now touching inside to manage everything. Generally, you'll take off, depending on your configuration, looking about 150 knots, pull back on the stick to about 10, 13 degrees nose high, and then you're pretty much letting the jet fly off the runway, getting your gear up. There you go. Felt the afterburner there.
This thing is so easy to take off. Even I could fly it after all those years.
It comes back to you though, right?
It does. It's like riding a bike. It's like flying a jet.
So one thing I wanted to show you was our automated ground collision avoidance system. It saved 13 pilots' lives. Lockheed Martin pilots were saying, we need to get this in the F-35s.
That's like an autopilot that takes over and hopefully keeps you from crashing. That's how it saved all those lives already.
The AGCAS system, what it will do, it will take control of the flight controls if it feels that you are within 3 seconds of hitting the ground. And that's based off of your altitude, your airspeed, your attitude of the jet. It will use the necessary amount of G's to get you flying straight and level. So you see chevrons come and...
Wow. What an incredible piece of technology. I'm so glad that it is in every one of the jets that are leaving the line. So are those 13 people that are alive today because of it.
Oh yeah.
What an amazing day getting to see the jet up close, but duty calls.
Well, thanks for stopping by, Lockheed Martin.
All right, I'm out of here.
Let's go.
From the factory to the field, let's see this thing in action. We're here at Marine Corps Air Station, Miramar. We're going to hang out with an operational F-35 squadron today. Squadron VMFA 314, home of the Black Knights, and the only Marine Corps squadron to fly the F-35 C variant. They're hosting us for the day and giving us a day in the life of an F-35 pilot. Snooki, everybody wants to show up, hop in the jet, and go turn and burn and have some fun, right? But there's a lot more steps involved than just showing up and flying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you walk us through?
I wish it was that easy. So I tell everybody it's not just about the flight itself. You got the preparation on the front side. So that's all the mission planning that you do with computers nowadays upstairs. And then you actually got to talk about what you just planned. So that's called the brief.
It's time to go into the flight briefing room where we're going to cover the details of today's mission. Come on. Briefings take place before and after each flight and are at least an hour each, depending on mission complexity.
Mission overview will take off out of here, head out to the R2301 West, knock out our high aspect BFM just amongst ourselves. 1125, the 401 F5s are going to take off. We're going to knock out our dissimilar BFM for the second code for today. What this could look like for you as you go vertically into this merge and you misassessed his energy. Maybe you thought he was slow and couldn't come up to meet you, right? Say, for example, you decide to go up, exploit the vertical, and you realize that he's got energy to come up and match you. If you were to take lead pursuit in this case, sure, it's going to probably achieve a weapon solution faster, but you also realize you're giving him a blue sky background and the ability to pull forward on his canopy and achieve a shot against you. Any questions on what we're going to do today? No, sir. All right, let's get dressed and go.
So that's the flight brief. It's time to suit up.
All right, so yeah, we're here. This is where we have all of our flight gear. We have the jacket with all of the survival gear on it, as well as the G-suit, and then this is where we keep our helmets.
Costing hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece, each helmet is as specialized as the jets themselves. Fitting a helmet to a pilot is a 2-day fitting process that involves pupil measurement and can be affected by slight variations in hair length or even weight. The helmet nearly becomes an extension of the pilot's body.
You put this helmet on, it's sized, laser cut for your head, and then once you're wearing it, this will connect to the aircraft on the right side of the G-suit. There's no physical heads-up display in the cockpit. It's obviously just in the helmet here. With the display visor down, that's where all of your symbology will be combined, and then we have an outer visor that protects from the sun as well. So one of the interesting things about this helmet is you don't ever fly with night vision goggles. It's always fully integrated. So if you have a mission where you take off at night, land after sunrise, or vice versa, you don't have to take any extra equipment. You literally just lift the dark visor up and everything works perfectly.
You're doing more than just flying your own jet. I mean, even unarmed, this aircraft has so much more ability to integrate the force.
There are a lot of aircraft that carry weapons and have their own sensors, and the F-35 is no different, except that the sensors it has have the ability to share a massive amount of targeting data with everyone else who's airborne or on the ground. Yeah. So what we are is we're effectively a node in a much larger web of systems, and our presence in a fight, even without weapons, we have the ability to allow other aircraft to participate and be more survivable and lethal in ways that they would not be if the F-35 were not there.
The thing that really strikes me is the fact that there's only one seat in these aircraft. So what are you guys doing to take a pilot from the simulator to their first sortie, which is also their first solo in the F-35?
The way we handle that is actually through a little bit longer ground school than you're probably used to include more simulator training. When you have your first flight, there's an instructor in another aircraft chasing you. So you do have that safety net initially, but it is an increased amount of trust that is given in F-35 pilots initially to learn the aircraft and fly it by themselves. But we've adjusted to that as a community. And from that point, it's very similar to any other fighter aircraft training you would go through, where you go through initially familiarization, and then you start to introduce more complex types of flying, formation, night flying, air to surface, air to air, and then typically carrier qualification, where you go out to the ship both day and night and take arrested landings as well as catapults in the F-35C. That's the culmination of your ability to fly the aircraft, and that's really from start to finish how that all works.
So you just got back from deployment, working with our coalition forces on the other side of the world. Where were you, and how well does the F-35 integrating out there in the real air battlefield?
The aircraft's performing very well. The range, the sensor performance, and the ability to integrate and share information with the 4th gen platform. The F-35 really proved its worth where we were, whether that be the Philippine Sea, East China Sea, South China Sea, etc. We were able to meet higher objectives for just really being present and showing what an air wing of the future looks like with F-35 integrated. It's very rewarding as well to really be at the tip of the spear, as an air wing mission commander going out and planning whatever type of exercise we were doing. To have F-35 really at the forefront of that and controlling the whole exercise was absolutely the most fulfilling thing I've done so far in my career.
Our kids all wanted to fly the F-16 like mom and dad, but after everything I'm learning about the F-35, I gotta say, they're cleared hot if they wanna follow into the F-35 world. It's so impressive, and as the airplane continues to evolve, I can't wait to see where the F-35 takes us. Snooky, you're the commanding officer here at the 314th. You're in a Marine Corps fighter squadron. You deploy on an aircraft carrier, yet you train here at Miramar. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're a pretty unique squadron within the Marine Corps, actually the only F-35C squadron. For us, the F-35C was designed for an aircraft carrier. However, being Marines, we kind of alternate between deploying with the Navy on the carrier and then land-based operations as well. So when we're focused on land-based operations like this summer, we're talking about operations out there in like the South Pacific Islands, in Australia, and really getting out there and working with our allies and partners.
It's about training for real world operations. So we train like we fight.
So the pilot just completed his walk around, hopped in the cockpit, did some final checks, and you can hear he's cranking up the engine. It's time to go fly. These guys are getting ready to go fly high aspect BFM. Basically, they're gonna dogfight, and they're probably gonna be up in the air for about an hour and a half. Man, I am jealous. Fights on! That was so cool seeing this thing fly. The F-35 is such an amazing aircraft. The F-35C model is especially cool. It's the biggest one of all three variants. It's used for landing on aircraft carriers, and it has a ton of range. Let's go talk aircraft carriers. So you got F-35s landing on aircraft carriers. Why do we put them on the boats to begin with?
So the F-35 Charlies are on the aircraft carrier because we are the 911 response to the world in crisis. The F-35 plays such a key role in that is because with the technology we provide, we can connect everybody from legacy in the air, in the ground, and give them a much bigger and more detailed picture of what we're facing so that they can complete their missions.
What does the flight deck controller do on the aircraft carrier?
So as a flight deck controller and FDC, I am the middle person that talks with the dog in the tower, so that way we are maneuvering, because on the flight deck, you have about 40 to 50 aircraft at one time, maneuvering in a very small area, which is about the length of 3 football fields. So you have 3 football fields with 50 plus aircraft all moving, all turning at the same time. So my job is to make sure that everyone is safe, making sure that the dog knows where my aircraft are compared to the rest of the squadron.
What's it like when the airplane comes in to land? Like, how does that look?
It's called a controlled chaos. It's a controlled chaos for a specific reason because of the chaotic mindset of everyone moving all the aircraft around. What stands out with the F-35 Charlie compared to the Alphas and the Bravos is that we have a tail hook which catches an arresting cable and the back end of the aircraft carrier, which assisted to get to that stop when it comes to land.
I think landing on the aircraft carrier has got to be one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. I would love to experience that someday. But you know what is more impressive to watch is the B model with the short takeoff, vertical landing. I understand you have some experience with that one as well.
I do have a previous experience with the F-35 Bravo, which is the Marine Corps' replacement variant for the AV-AB Harrier. So they operate off of what we call an LHD, which is a smaller size carrier, which holds helicopters, and the F-35 Bravo. So with the rest of the branches, Air Force and the Navy and the Marines, working together with the F-35 program, it does help everyone integrate with one another.
Where do you see the future of the air battle turning?
Fast forward 10 years, I see F-35s, F-15Es and EXs, F-16s, and partner that with the B-21, and you're going to have a heck of a force.
When we were out there on the battlefield, there were things that we did that were unprecedented, that they had never seen before. And what we look at 10, 20 years from now is going to be a different and even more effective F-35 ready for the future fight.
When I think about the legacy of it, it's enabling others in the fleet, and from a relationship across the globe, all the allies coming together. It does represent the baseline of our fifth-generation fighter aircraft.
I think the F-35 is not only the most capable fifth-generation aircraft that we have now, but it's also the most capable aircraft for the future.
It was so inspiring to learn about the incredible technology behind the F-35 and how it will protect our country and our allies. From all of us here at Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum, we're looking forward to taking you on more adventures, exploring aviation on our planet and beyond.
The Artemis program is led by NASA along with 6 partner agencies. The goal is to return humans to the moon and establish a sustainable presence there, preparing us to develop the necessary skills for future missions to Mars. It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening right now.
We're starting to break the bonds from our home planet, just like we are breaking the bonds from gravity and being able to take flight.
A new chapter in space exploration is about to unfold.
The launch of Artemis 1 is a new beginning for discovery, for our country, for our species.
We have this one single planet that we have. What's beyond there? Where else can we go? Can we live on Mars?
By establishing a sustainable presence on the moon and developing new technologies, Artemis is paving the way for future missions into deep space. Get ready for liftoff. It's time to go behind the wings. I'm Myrna James. I'm a science journalist specializing in all things technology. We're here at Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum in Denver, Colorado. Today, we're going into deep space with NASA's latest human exploration program, Artemis. There's a lot to explore in this one, but before we dive into the Artemis program, let's take a look at how we got here.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Apollo was the first ever space program to bring humans to the moon, but it was a huge technological challenge. The Apollo 1 mission began in 1967 and sadly resulted in the loss of 3 astronaut lives during a test. By 1969, Apollo 11 brought Neil Armstrong to take the first ever steps on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Apollo 17 was the final Apollo mission, and the program ended in 1972 due to lack of funding and risk to the astronauts at that time. At the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, it's a whole new era for space exploration.
This is the place where our species first departed the shores of our home planet. We launched our American astronauts on the Saturn V launch vehicle during the Apollo program. And they first walked on the surface of another celestial body, and they departed right here at the Kennedy Space Center. And since that time, we've continued to do incredible things. Well, the Kennedy Space Center is an amazing place right now. It's never been busier.
Artemis 1, the first mission of the Artemis program, was a test flight for spaceflight hardware and software. It was uncrewed, which means, of course, no one was on board. It launched in November 2022 from Kennedy Space Center.
The launch of Artemis 1 is a new beginning for discovery, for our country, for our species. We're going to learn things that we can't even anticipate by sending our astronaut crews back to the moon to stay, to live, to learn, and eventually it'll give us the knowledge and information we need to go to Mars.
How did it feel when Artemis 1 launched so successfully?
I'll never forget driving into work that day and thinking to myself, this is the day for us. We're going to launch Artemis today. And then I got into the flying room, and at the time, I was director of engineering, so I sat with the chief engineers. As we approached the T-minus 10-minute hold, the launch director, Charlie Blackwell Thompson, giving the go for Artemis 1 launch. The ground launch sequencer, a computer program that controls the launch, picked up the count at T-minus 10 minutes. It monitors thousands of measurements, both on the ground and on the launch vehicle and spacecraft. And I'm thinking to myself, we're really going to go.
7,
and at T-minus 6 seconds,
5,
the main engines on the core stage lit up, and I could see the glow coming out from the mobile launcher. The countdown went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Boosters in ignition.
And the solid rocket boosters ignited, lighting up the entire Florida sky. We've got to get that vehicle clear of the tower, get the umbilical arms out of the way. And before I could even complete the thought, the vehicle had cleared the tower. It was a fast mover.
And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
The Artemis 1 launch was amazingly successful. The launch vehicle put the Orion spacecraft on a precise trajectory around the moon. And after about 25 days, Orion approached the Earth at 25,000 miles an hour, re-entered the atmosphere, and with the aid of parachutes, hit the water about 20 miles an hour.
After that successful test flight, where does it go from here?
Engineers are combing over the data right now for the launch vehicle and the spacecraft, and we are making modifications to the mobile launcher. We're hardening it, making it able to withstand the blast loads, the exhaust coming out of the rocket, if you will. And we're getting ready to launch our next cruise to the moon for Artemis 2.
You can just feel the excitement here.
That's right, we're standing right here on the base of the mobile launcher. This 400-foot structure is where we assembled the Artemis 1 launch vehicle, the Space Launch System, and we launched SLS and Orion to the moon back in November. This huge structure is going to be used for Artemis 2 and launching our first cruise back to the moon since 1972. The day after the Artemis 1 launch, I came out with a couple of friends of mine, and I could feel the crunch of the solid rocket booster residue under my feet. And I looked up at the tower and I contemplated the enormity of our accomplishment.
Artemis 2 is scheduled to launch in November 2024. It will introduce a 4-person crew and focus on testing human factors on the Orion spacecraft around the moon. Think about that. That will be the furthest humans have ever been from Earth. Artemis 3 is planned to take the next step of landing astronauts on the moon, including the first woman and person of color. To achieve the goals of Artemis, NASA is developing new spacesuits, rovers, habitats. At the forefront of their effort is the Orion spacecraft, the only vehicle designed for deep space exploration. It looks a lot like the Apollo capsule, but inside and out, it's packed full of technology that makes it safer and more capable than any of its predecessors. At Johnson Space Center, the Orion spacecraft is a centerpiece of the first crewed Artemis mission, Artemis 2. Debbie, can you introduce us to Orion? It's right here.
Well, we have a suite of vehicles that can go to International Space Station and do some low Earth orbit kind of activities. Orion's unique in that it's the only spacecraft that can go to deep space. It's made up of 3 main components. So what you're seeing behind us here is the crew module. This is the only piece that comes back after our missions. But there's actually 2 other pieces that are very vital to the spacecraft. There's the service module, which actually is attached to the bottom of the crew module. It provides all of the power, propulsion, propellants. Most of the attitude maneuvers that we do during a mission are done with the service module. It's built by our European partners across 10 different countries in Europe. And then on top, when you look at pictures of Orion, you'll see a kind of a tall, pointy structure. That's called our launch abort system. So that is designed primarily for if there's an emergency either before we launch, while we're on the launch pad, or during that ascent phase. That launch abort system actually takes this crew module with the crew inside and flies it away from the emergency. So we get rid of the launch abort system about 2 minutes into flight, so we know we don't need it after that point, but it's very vital.
Orion is the cornerstone. So how does it fit into the whole Artemis program?
In addition to the spacecraft, we have our Space Launch System, which is the big rocket that we launch on. We have some ground system support coming out of the Kennedy Space Center. And then there's these other elements that come into Artemis as we fly these different, more complex missions. Starting with Artemis 2, we fly just the crew on our vehicle. Artemis 3, we bring in the lander, so that'll be the first landing on the moon. Artemis 4, we expand to this thing called a gateway, and we actually put a gateway very similar to a small space station in orbit around the moon, and so we can actually have more regular access to the moon and do lunar sorties from that permanent base that would be around the moon.
When it's time for launch, NASA's Space Launch System, or SLS, is a super heavy lift launch vehicle that serves as the basis for human exploration beyond Earth's orbit. Towering 212 feet tall, SLS boasts unparalleled power and capabilities, making it the sole rocket capable of sending Orion, astronauts, and cargo directly to the moon in a single mission. Giovanna, what are we looking at here?
We are looking at ICPS. ICPS is the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. It's the second stage on the Space Launch System. When you see it on the rocket, it just looks like one big stage altogether, but as you can see here, it's actually broken up into several components. You can see the liquid oxygen tank, the liquid hydrogen tank, and of course those are the fuels that mix together to ignite the engine.
It's amazing to see this up close. So you're a rocket scientist. How do you launch a rocket?
So to launch a rocket, there's a lot of complicated parts that have to come together to work perfectly to make it happen. So we'll start with them separately, have the second stage, and once we're done processing it here, it will integrate with the first stage. We'll go out to the launch pad, and every group has to come together, work together to make it happen.
So we're 4 stories up here, and this rocket is going to be so heavy. How does it get off the ground?
So the way the rocket gets off the ground is the engine's on the core stage, and once that launches, that's when ICPS gets to take over in space to get Orion to the moon. So ICPS has 2 engine burns, one when it separates from the core stage and another one later on to get Orion into the higher Earth orbit it needs to make it to the moon. We have testing and processing that we need to complete here in this facility. Once we're done, we will hand it over to NASA, and we will actually go over there and collaborate with them on their testing and even do some testing there ourselves. So we work in cooperation with them all the way up until launch.
You can't do anything on the scale that NASA does things without the team coming together. When I think of NASA, I don't just think of NASA, Kennedy Space Center, Johnson Space Center, all the different centers. I think of NASA contractors. We are NASA, all these teams working together. ICPS here at Kennedy Space Center, this is special. This represents the future of human spaceflight leaving low Earth orbit.
The ultimate goal is for people to live and work on the moon. So each Artemis mission builds upon the last to help get us there.
The interesting thing about working on human spaceflight, obviously there are many aspects. There are pyrotechnics, mechanisms, structures, things that we have to consider about the vehicle. But when you put the crew and the human element in the middle, you have to worry about the level of vibration they may see, and also how do they interact with the vehicle? How do they control the vehicle? We give them displays to monitor what's happening, and we give them controls that they can reach under the influence of both vibration and acceleration that increases as they go into space.
What kind of testing did you do for vibration?
In general, the philosophy is you want to go to the limits on the ground so you know what happens if you ever see that in flight. What I saw from Artemis 1's data, we won't get anywhere close to the levels where we're feeling like that vibration is potentially injurious, and we will be able to read those displays throughout all of the missions. You learn new things anytime you go into space. Now we add crew to the Artemis 2. Now we're going to understand how humans live in our vehicle and operate it.
So Artemis 2 is the first crewed mission for the Artemis program. Is this what the astronauts will see when they enter?
This is very much what they would see as they come across that gantry. They're 300 and something feet in the air at the top of the rocket. They'd be walking across this gantry, and this is what they would approach as far as the crew module and mock up of the launch abort system here. And that's what they would go inside. So let's go in. This is amazing.
So Artemis 2, the astronauts will be in here for 10 days. They'll do everything in here, live, work, everything.
So on Artemis 2, one of the first things that we're doing is checking out the environmental control and life support system. So we did not fly that full system on Artemis 1.
So one thing we'll be doing the first couple of orbits around the Earth before we commit to going to the moon is we'll be testing out that environmental control and life support, making sure it's all working exactly as we had planned on Earth. But this is where they would actually practice the handling qualities of the spacecraft. So in Artemis 3, Orion has to dock to the lander. And so before we do that on Artemis 3, we want to practice those rendezvous and prox operations maneuvers.
So the astronauts will be lying down. Can we check it out?
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be lying down, they'll be wearing their launch and entry suits, and so they would be strapped into these seats and ready to go. So the commander would be sitting here, the pilot would be sitting here, and behind me are the crew displays. It's not a touch screen. They didn't want a touch screen because of the proximity of all the things going on. The only thing you really see manual switches for are for off nominal events. If the crew had to, for example, throw the parachutes themselves. You know, those things are very automated sequences, but there are some things that the crew has manual switches for in case of an emergency. You've got a rotational and a translational hand controller, so that's how they would fly the vehicle, and beautiful views out your window above.
Being in here makes me realize, like, this is real. This is not a concept on paper. You know, we're already doing it. It's so exciting. And thank you so much for showing me the inside of Orion. You're focusing on the people.
Yes.
And so where are we here?
So we are in the Orion Mission Simulator. This is one of a couple of key training facilities that we'll use to train the Orion crew members. So for Artemis 2, we'll train the Artemis 2 crew, and for future missions, the launching and flying an Orion piece of their training will happen here.
So the astronauts are learning exactly what they'll do when they're flying, so of course it won't be the first time when they're there that they've done it.
Our whole goal in training is to make sure that at the end of everything they're doing, that they and the ground teams are prepared to fly the mission successfully.
How did it feel when you announced the first 4 astronauts?
So I was fortunate enough to be in the room when they made that announcement, and it was incredible. They had almost everyone from the astronaut office present, and to see those folks get called out from that group as those 4 walked on stage, I thought, man, what an honor to get to train these folks.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Artemis 2 crew, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Hammock-Koch, Jeremy Hansen.
We are super excited to have the Artemis 2 crew named, because now we've been doing all this development and we have crew members come over and help us, but now to have the Artemis 2 crew be able to come and put their stamp on it, and we'll be able to get their feedback and help with that, is just, I think, super excited for all of us that are working on Orion to actually see the crew use the vehicle. With the Artemis program venturing into deep space, that is one of the biggest challenges, is how we deal with radiation. And one of our biggest concerns is how that's going to affect the crew. Not only with the exterior of the vehicle, in our crew capsule and the crew module, we have the crew get into 2 of our stowage bays that act as a radiation shelter, and that's how we protect the crew. Not just another autonomous spacecraft, it's not just another rover, it's actually a spacecraft with human beings on it. And so every day we do our design and we think about Reed and Victor and Christina and Jeremy, and how are we taking care of them personally to make sure that, you know, they come back to their families.
Instead of talking in an ambiguous, well, the crew will someday need this training, to have actual names and faces, it just makes it so much more exciting and real to anticipate getting into the classroom or the simulator or the mock-up with them and get them started on this journey.
What's going to be different about this? There's so much innovation.
A lot of things have changed in 50 years in terms of both what we know about the moon, what our experiences were on Apollo, and in terms of technology and what we have the capability to bring with us and equip the crew with. So we will have new lunar spacesuits, we will have very different innovative types of landers. The types of tools and experiments that we may have on the lunar surface are all going to be informed by the science that's been done since Apollo.
Establishing a permanent presence on the moon requires developing new technologies to provide the everyday things we take for granted on Earth, like water and electricity. So we've only explored a very small amount of the moon, and now we're going back to the South Pole. What can we learn?
The Apollo missions were able to explore roughly the equatorial regions, which would equate to about the continent of Africa, and we know how diverse that is. Now, if you compare it to the Earth, The rest of the moon is the rest of the Earth. So we've only explored one of 7 continents and the remainder of the surface area covered of water. So we have a huge amount of the surface of the moon that's left unexplored. In there you've got craters, which could be hiding water ice. There could be other resources from all the different impacts that are the craters and the pockmarks we lovingly look at the moon each night.
So we're going back to the moon to stay. What kind of architecture is needed? There's nothing there.
So imagine if you've ever been camping or backpacking, right? We take for granted that, yes, I'm carrying things with me, but on the surface of the moon, everything that I need, I have to take with me. I need my air to breathe. I need my food. I need my water. And so to think of it as the ultimate camping trip. In situ resource utilization, which basically means we're using the resources that we find and the sites that we're exploring, is very critical to our future plans. We've got to be able to know what's there and how we can utilize it best, and that reduces how much we need back from Earth. So that includes water from water ice. It includes propellants that we can create from breaking down that water ice, and also oxygen that we need to sustain life as we know it. We can dream it. My job is to make sure the architecture is enabled to allow us to do it. So if it's science or if it's a town or a colony, as long as we have the will and the backing that we're able to accomplish that.
With anything this complex, it takes so much international collaboration to get it done.
With complex projects, collaboration is key. One of the cornerstones of our Moon to Mars program and the Artemis program in particular is the international collaboration and commercial partnerships. The Gateway program, which is soon to be planned for lunar orbit, also has contributions from various international partners. We're seeing a lot of interest globally along this.
The Orion spacecraft will take humans back to the moon, but getting to the moon is only half the challenge. The Gateway is an important part of the Artemis plan. It will offer the necessary aid for extended human missions on the moon and act as a starting point for missions deeper into space. The Gateway orbits around the moon, and it can also reposition itself with the most powerful electric propulsion system ever used in space. We're here at the Structures Lab of Maxar, where they're working on the PPE, the Power and Propulsion Element for Gateway, part of Artemis. So Aditi, tell me about this.
Let's start with the Gateway. What is Gateway? Gateway is part of the overall Artemis mission, and this is humanity's chance of going back to the moon, and this time staying longer. This is one step before going to Mars. So Gateway is a formulation of a lot of different spacecraft that have different functions that will come and attach to each other and form a big configuration, just like the ISS, except now we are going all the way to the moon.
So how does this tie in?
So now we go down from Gateway to PPE. What is PPE? So the PPE is the power and propulsion element of the Gateway. We are providing power and propulsion to the entire Gateway. So we have thrusters that provide the propulsion and the attitude control, and then we have power through the large ROSAs, which are the rollout solar arrays. They are the highest capacity that Maxar has ever flown before. It's also the control element. So with all the sensors, actuators, and the propulsion system, PPE is the main control element for the entire Gateway.
So Aditi, this doesn't really look like a spacecraft yet. How's it going to get built?
Let's start with what we're looking at. This is the core structure of the PPE. This is the most integral part of our spacecraft. This is what holds everything together. The holes that you see are the inserts for panels. We'll talk about panels later, but that's where all the panels that go on. The panels are essentially where all the equipment that goes on the spacecraft sits.
So it's called the Gateway. It's made up of so many different components.
That's right. There are electrical components, there are components that move, and there are structural panels, some of which we have over here. If you've ever seen a rocket launch, you can see how the rocket shakes very violently. So you may ask yourself, what keeps the spacecraft from falling apart? It's because of the structure panels. The structure panels help the spacecraft survive the launch.
There's other space stations that have been built. What makes this one different?
The space stations that are currently on orbit now, they're close to the Earth. The Lunar Gateway is going to be out at the moon. When you start talking about going to the moon, you have wider temperature extremes, gets really hot, gets really cold out there, and you have a different radiation environment. How do you keep the equipment safe? And ultimately, how do you keep the astronauts safe in that environment? Those are the unique challenges that the Gateway program is solving. It is a place where science discoveries take place. It's a stopping point between the Earth and the Moon. We're going back to the Moon, and Gateway is just the beginning of this great space exploration adventure that we're on.
Other elements of the program include the Human Landing System and the Artemis Base Camp. The Human Landing System, or Lunar Lander, is charged with transporting astronauts between the Gateway and the surface of the Moon. The Artemis Base Camp is a home base on the Moon where astronauts will live when they're studying the lunar surface. The Artemis program is in its early stages with missions planned through Artemis 5, and additional missions are being proposed. The goal here is sending a crew to Mars. We have a lot more to learn, but it's possible that some of the first people to go to Mars are alive today.
There's a lot at stake for all of us. Just because I'm working on this program, it doesn't mean it's important to me. I think each and every person on this planet can feel that they are part of this. This is going to change space, this is going to change technology, this is going to change engineering, this is going to change how we look at everything.
Why is space exploration important?
Space is important because it invigorates the imagination of everyone. It's a sense of adventure. What's around the next bend, what's over the next hill. Space is the next hill. People around the world, no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing, look up at the sky and they can wonder, what is that? And space exploration answers those questions.
It's going to be so exciting to look at the Moon and say that there's another human, on that planet. And I helped build the spacecraft that got humans to another planet, and that is just keeps me going every day.
Each of these is a building block for the sustained lunar economy, and then eventually a stepping stone to Mars.
There's an immense amount of science to be learned in exploring the lunar vicinity and the lunar surface in a much more vast area than we did on Apollo. We're born to explore, and this is exactly what we're doing.
With Apollo, the U.S. inspired the world by the feat that we accomplished. With Artemis, we're inspiring the world to come with us to explore the Moon again.
As far as space travel has come, there are still great distances to go. Here at Wings Over the Rockies, we're always diving into the magic of the solar system and the mysteries of deep space. We'll see you next time on Behind the Wings.
See you next time on Behind the Wings.